Alright, does everybody remember what to do? Don't get too comfortable. Gotta get the energy going. This is what we do, Helen. Everybody remembers the Rocky movie? Born a champion!
Born a champion!
Born a champion!
Born a champion!
Woohoo! Alright, give yourself a round of applause. Good job, good job. Alright, Tamara, if you could give me just a little bit of volume on there for our Facebook friends. Maybe a little bit more. Can everybody hear me? Can you guys hear me back there?
Sure.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. So tonight we have our cancer prevention workshop. I'm excited to be sharing this. I mean, this is important. I mean, you guys heard about Suzanne Summers and, just looking at that and reading her husband's account of everything that happened there brought me back to what I went through with my mom. And as I'm going through this, I'm thinking to myself, I think there's a lot that we need to talk about because if you live long enough, what do we eventually all deal with? The cancer. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that tonight. Next month we have our diabetes and blood sugar control workshop. That's a month from now, and that's one of those things where people are walking around and they're either moving towards it or they're moving away from it. We know that most of our friends and family take medications for that. Even if you're not diabetic, if you have type 2 diabetes, you can learn how to reverse that. 100% reversible. And the other thing that goes along with that is losing weight, losing fat, preventing dementia, preventing Alzheimer's, and preventing cancer. So next month is really valuable. So I would encourage you guys to keep that on your radar. Think about any friends or family that need help because the solutions will be there for that. So let's just dive right into it as we look into our future. The decisions that you make now are going to determine what your life looks like in the next 5, 10, 20 years. Do you have a vision for your life? If you don't have a plan, then what do they say, Luther? If you fail to plan, you plan to what? Fail. Yeah. So you have to have a plan. You can't leave that up to anybody else. And what is our plan here that we're going to roll out for you here? It's called the Core 4. Everybody say Core 4. Core 4. What is the Core 4? Does anybody know what the Core 4 is? Education.
Exercise.
Right. Exercise. Nutrition and proper spinal function. Very good. Good job, guys. So function, fitness, nutrition, education. That is our health delivery system. That's the system that we use. So we're going to kind of break it down tonight. We're going to cover a little bit of each of them. And when you get a good handle on these, you have the basics. You have a foundation for you to have a plan to stay out of doctor's offices, off medications, out of hospitals. And as you go through this, you look around 10 years from now, guess what? Everybody else is going to be looking older than you, moving slower than you, taking more medication than you, and not doing as well, So my hope is that you can lead by example. Are you ready? All right, here we go. So when it comes to cancer, we know that it's every 33 seconds someone's diagnosed with cancer. It's the second leading disease killer. You guys know all the stats. You know how prevalent it is. And the thing that what most people don't know is that it's not based on your genes. There's 5% of what somebody can inherit, like the BRCA1 or the BRCA2. These are mutated genes. Like if you look up here, hereditary cancer is what a person inherits, where the genes are actually mutated. And there's very little that you can do as far as eating good and exercising, which will influence a better outcome. These are the folks who have a significantly increased risk of cancer, and it only accounts for what, 5 to 10%. Then you have the familial type of cancers. That shows us that there's about 15 to 20% of cancers. And this you can actually help with epigenetics. You can help with your lifestyle. But we do all have genetic tendencies. So for example, if you looked at my DNA report, you'd see that I have some genes that don't allow me to get toxins out of my body, as well as some of you guys, for example. There's also genes in my directory there that show me that I don't process carbohydrates as well as maybe some of you guys do. And that comes from our ancestry, you know? So these are things that we need to be aware of that do get passed down to us, but can you influence your body to improve with that? Yes, so it's still preventable. And then you have these, what they call sporadic cancers. 70 to 80% of all these cancers that we deal with or get diagnosed with they're by chance or they're due to environment. What does that say down there? Environment. So we have this thing called epigenetics, which enables us to influence our genes, to turn on these cancer-killing genes and turn off the cancer-promoting genes. So which two parts of this can we control? Right there. The epigenetics applies to what? The familial type of cancer, and then what's the other one? The sporadic type of cancer. Those two percentage-wise make up what percentage of all the cancers? 85. Somewhere about 90%. Yeah, give or take 95, 90%. And that's what I've been teaching you guys for a while. I just wanted to break this down to give you a little more context to it. The things that you can control, that we know that cause cancer, are right here. Alcohol, toxicity, tobacco, sugar, stress, obesity. What's that last one say? Nerve interference. And we're going to talk about a little bit of that so that you have a better understanding. Yes, these are all causative factors of cancer, but for some of you, I asked the question. You may remember this. What's the single greatest factor that will increase your risk of cancer than anything else? Did I ask? Some of you guys I asked it, and nobody ever gets the answer right. I asked the same question about heart disease. I asked the same question about brain disease. It's the single greatest factor, and you know what it is. And we're going to get to it. If you don't know, it's okay. We're going to get to it. So the first thing we have to do is look at our environmental factors. And the environmental factors are really not just outside in our outdoor air and our outdoor environment, but really our indoor environment and the choices that we make. Not just the air we breathe, but also the choices that we make. The things that are healthy that we do versus unhealthy. Like opening your medicine chest. What do we call that? A pill-popping lifestyle. How many of you guys were brought up in a medicine chest? I know I was. My dad was a medic in the Army. So, I mean, our medicine cabinets were chock full of drugs. And if there was something to put on, if we had a cut or a pill to pop, that was in our house. And that's just, you know, that's a cultural thing. You leave the United States, and that's not the case in other worlds and other countries, is it? They don't take nearly as many medications as we do. This is just a thought process. And so when you look at what promotes cancer, what turns on the cancer-causing genes, it's the decisions that we make. And these are things that we don't generally think through. It's just because we've been told by doctors or we've been told by our parents. And it's just behaviors that we've learned watching other people, not really thinking through it. But once you start looking at the information, you can see. Antibiotics, studies show it's associated with an increased risk of what? Breast cancer. Cholesterol drugs have been shown to increase the risk of breast cancer by 83 to 143%, right? Women taking an aspirin a day for 5 years or more increase the risk of breast cancer by what? 80%. Yeah. So this, you can go on the internet. That's where I got all this, guys. You can get the same information. You're not going to get it at your doctor's office. You're not going to get it from the TV commercials. Who's responsible for your health? You are. Yeah, I am for me. You are for you. I want to help you. I want to help expose you to this information so you understand that, you know, if you start thinking differently and you take a step back, Vianney, and you see the forest from the trees. I know you weren't sleeping on me. I'm just kidding. Then if you think differently, you make better decisions. And if you make better decisions, you get better results. And in this case, we're talking about reducing your risk of cancer. Right or right? Right. Okay. So cancer-causing testing, cancer-causing decisions that we make. Mammography is one of them. Is there a benefit to mammography? Yeah, maybe, sometimes, but not a whole lot. That's what studies are showing. Largest mammography study to date finds what? No benefit. British Medical Journal, they also published it in the New England Journal of Medicine. The death rates from breast cancer were the same in women who got mammograms as those who didn't. And that study was within a certain age group, was between 40 and 60, right around those years. But when you go for a mammogram, if you've ever had a mammogram, I haven't, but maybe you have, you kind of know that they use a lot of radiation, significant radiation. You should never be concerned about the x-ray that I take over there, 1/100th of a second. You get more radiation standing out in the sun for 5 minutes than that. But when you go for a mammogram, massive amounts of radiation, massive doses of radiation. Doesn't that cause cancer? If you keep doing that year after year, of course. So what about prostate screenings, prostate exams? We're all concerned about our PSA when we go to our doctor. And if you're not really aware of this, they're not really appropriate anymore. Like if you don't have any sort of symptoms, any sort of signs, imminent danger, concerns with your prostate, and you're a healthy individual, you should not really be going for regular PSA testing and prostate exams.
For numerous reasons. Director of Research at Mayo Clinic's Department of Urology, Dr. Jeff Cohen says such false alarms may subject men to unnecessary tissue sample biopsies or to aggressive cancer therapies that may not be warranted. Recent well-designed studies in both the U.S. and Europe have concluded PSA testing shows very little benefit for men with no symptoms of prostate cancer. Dr. John Tilbert says that may seem surprising.
But that's the general feeling right now, is that screening in the general population probably doesn't save a whole lot of lives based on what we...
Okay, so if you did get one and your PSA is elevated, does that mean that you have prostate cancer? No. It could just mean you have an infection. It could mean you have just systemic inflammation. Your body's inflamed. You could have just a general infection. You could have inflammation of your prostate. The man who invented the PSA said that was the worst mistake that he ever made, was actually exposing the public to this misnomer and subjecting all the men to the inappropriate testing and everything that it leads to after that. So when you see all the pink ribbons that go on and all the fundraising that happens, I think the intentions of people who want to get involved with that are usually, from the heart. People want to help other people, but you also have to understand that it's really designed to promote more testing, and everybody gets in on it, and they have to pay the licensing fees, and there's a lot of money that's being made. But at the end of the day, who created this? Who started the whole Think Pink and the ribbons and the race for the cure? The drug companies. They did that because if you're going to do more testing, what are you going to find more of? Cancer. And if you find more cancer, what do you get to use more of? Your products. So we need to be aware of that. But it was an interesting story that they actually promoted. I was surprised. Normally they'll stop funding news outlets when they do stories like this because it starts to raise questions, and drug companies don't like that. And the billionaires of this world, control the media outlets, and they control the information that we get, and that's why you don't see a whole lot of this. But this was one thing that I caught a short time ago.
There has long been a debate in this country about the costs and benefits of cancer screenings. And now a new report is throwing another wrench in that debate, this time on the side of those who argue it can be very wasteful. The study, which was published in the Journal of Health Affairs, estimates that the U.S. spends $4 billion a year on unnecessary medical costs. Now, to be clear, this specifically relates to breast cancer screening and treatment. Let's take a look at how all of that breaks down. Now, about $2.8 billion was spent on false positive mammograms. That includes people who were told some kind of lump was found that happened to actually be no lump at all. Another $1.2 billion of that waste is attributed to breast cancer overdiagnosis. So that refers to the treatment of tumors that grow slowly or don't grow at all and are really unlikely to actually develop into a life-threatening disease. To conduct this study, researchers took a look at 700,000 different women in all 50 states, aged 40 to 59. They did this using billing data from a major U.S. insurer. And the researchers note that this is, of course, not only about costs, it's about the millions of women out there potentially doing themselves more harm psychologically and physically than they would without these medical procedures.
It's a big issue. It's a big issue. Yeah. And the problem is that people, they don't have the mindset, they're not aware of it, so they're subjected to it, and then they often come out with more problems than they had going in with. And the reality is that everybody has cancer. Cancer is a normal mechanism by which your body makes abnormal cells, and then you have an immune system that actually is supposed to know how to kill it off. But your body has to be healthy in order for it to work that way. And that's what we want to get into tonight, giving you more knowledge about how to think through these things. Everybody has cancer. Most people die with it and not from it. She said, if you let it go, the body takes care of it. But if you do these screenings, you're going to catch these things and you're going to try to kill them off. But if you left it alone, the body would what? Take care of it. Yeah. And that comes from a study from the Journal of the American Medical Association. They're the ones that said that in their own medical journals. Autopsies find prostate cancer in 30% of men over the age of 50, 50% by the age of 70, and 80% by the age of 90. If a man lives long enough, they can expect to develop prostate cancer and really die with it and not from it. So that's just how it works. And an estimated 11.2% of the adult population has thyroid cancer. Despite the high incidence, thyroid cancer rarely causes death. Colonoscopy screenings find precancerous lesions in almost half the general population by age what? 80. So when you think about getting a colonoscopy, what do you think about? I don't want to go in there. I don't want to know. I don't want one of those body scans. My brother and I were just talking about this because we found out there's technology that actually they can do a whole body scan and they can find cancerous lesions or precancerous lesions. And then what happens if you get an image of all that, right? What do you do? How many hours of sleep every night are you going to lose over thinking about that when really in reality your body knows exactly what to do with it? So I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to live a preventative lifestyle and do what I know works to help my body stay strong so it can do what it was created to do. That's my opinion. That's my take on it. But everybody has cancer. So are we starting to get comfortable with this? So cancer is kind of like a normal thing. And there are times when you're gonna have to make a decision. You're gonna be at the doctor, and maybe you will decide to get a colonoscopy. Maybe you will decide to get a mammography. Maybe you will decide to get a prostate exam. And then they're going to give you a report. And that report may cause a little bit of fear, anxiety, trembling. And then you're going to be in a position where you have to make a decision. And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the road diverges, the fork in the road. And you have to choose a path. And once you choose that path, there's no turning back. So I've seen the way it works out. I've seen both. I've been to the end of both paths. And I want to help you think through this because, unfortunately, it's not, for most people, it's not if that day comes. It's what? It's when. And how you navigate up to that point reduces the likelihood that you have that conversation. But when it does come, at least you'll have peace. At least if you'll, not only do we know where we're going and where our future is, it's in eternity, but at least we have peace knowing that we have the knowledge here to be good stewards physically with this body that God gave us. And that's what I want to work through with you here. The single greatest factor, Patricia, right? Sister Lovin, I know. So Allison said it before. She's like, what's the single greatest factor? Our thinking. Right. We think that cancer is like an infection or a bacteria or a virus, something that we could just throw a bomb on and kill it and decimate it. And that's just not the way it works. Cancer is an opportunist. Cancer only goes where the garbage is, like flies go where the garbage is. And if you just take raid and you kill the cockroaches and the flies and you leave the trash out in your yard, what have you done? Nothing. You're kidding yourself. So if you have cancer growing in your body, if you have a mass, if you have a cancerous lesion and it's malignant, that has evolved in your body and grown because you have created a hospitable environment that feeds it to get to that point. Now, if you don't correct the conditions or the cause that created that in the first place, then it's only a matter of time until what? It comes back. So this was the case with Suzanne Somers, right? She got diagnosed with cancer when I think she was in her early 60s. I mean, maybe 20 years ago or so, right? And her body was younger, her body was healthier, her body was stronger. So whatever toxic treatment that she got at that point, her body could kind of handle, and she was able to rebound from it, that toxicity. But it never really addressed the cause, the source, and the root of why that cancer got there in the first place. So as you get older, sometimes people, their bodies get weaker, and what happened? Eventually it came back. So we have to look at this kind of like a dirty fishbowl and a clean fishbowl. When you have cancer, your body's a dirty fishbowl. And the cells in your body are like the fish. They're sick, they're dying, they're polluted, they're toxic. And that's what cancer loves. Cancer loves that environment because it's able to make more and more cells in that sick environment. Cancer doesn't need oxygen to survive and thrive. You know what it uses? Sugar. Yeah. So we create that environment. We pollute the fish tank that our body lives in, that dirty fishbowl. And so the question becomes, do you just treat the fish? Do you give the fish medicine and not change the water? Do you give the fish radiation, or can we give them a chemotherapy treatment in that fish tank and leave the water like that and not change the environment? Does that make any sense at all? Well, when you take somebody in who's a cancer patient and you give them, you put a port in their chest and you give them chemotherapy, and they're going for chemotherapy treatments every month, and you don't give them any counseling on nutrition, you don't give them the means to lose weight, you don't show them how to reduce their stress, you don't help them change their lifestyle at all, what have you done? You've kept the dirty fishbowl, right? Maybe you took the fish out, cleaned them up a little bit, and you threw them right back in there. And people don't think about that. I could see it. I could see it a mile away. But you know what? That's the world that we live in. Everybody thinks that way. The doctors think that way. They talk the patients into thinking that way. And every patient that's ever had breast cancer has thought that way. So we adopt that behavior and that mindset. We don't think any differently, right? But what's the only real solution to this? What's the most sensible approach? To correct the what? To correct the cause. So what do you have to do? You have to clean up the environment. Now, whether a person decides to get chemotherapy or radiation, or even, to have a tumor or a cancer actually cut out, if it's interfering with normal organ function, if that's a necessity, I understand that. But to poison your body with the chemotherapy, with the radiation, and to have those treatments ongoingly for a long period of time, that's something that I would seriously consider. Myself, like my wife asked me today, what would you do? And personally, watching my mother go through that, I would not do that. I saw what it did to her. She had lesions on her feet. Her legs got weak, and because of the effects of the chemo, her legs gave out. She broke her hip, and she had to go in for hip surgery. And she had the hip surgery, and that set her back. And she had to go on painkillers because the pain was still there after her hip surgery. And then after that, she had to go in for another surgery because she developed a duodenal ulcer. It was an emergency surgery last Thanksgiving. My dad had to rush her to the hospital. She almost died right there if he didn't act quickly. And so these were all these setbacks as a result of the chemo. Now, meanwhile, she had a lot of chemotherapy, so her body was weak. Her immune system was decimated. So she wasn't able to do anything at all. So what happened to her cancer while she was trying to recover from those surgeries as a result of the chemo? Her cancer numbers came roaring back, and they were the highest ever after she went back to the oncologist 2 or 3 months after her latest surgery. And then they dropped the bomb on her, like the most aggressive, strongest form of chemotherapy that you could take. They dropped it on her. And that was it. She came home, and she was non-responsive. It was like her body just totally shut down. And that was it. Like, my dad called the oncologist and said, what's going on? All she's doing is sleeping. And they took her in, they did an evaluation. They told my dad, just call hospice. This is it. I mean, there's nothing else that we could do. They sent her home, and they told my dad she had about a month or two, and that turned into 2 weeks, and then the final hospice person said that she had 2 days, and that's what it was, and it was just like that. So I know for a fact that my mother, she didn't die from the cancer. She died from the treatment of the cancer. She died because nobody could ever effectively help her clean out that bowl, clean up the environment inside. And every time she got another dose of that chemotherapy, it just created more of that on the left. You know, so each to his own. Everybody makes their own decisions. I'm just sharing you what I went through. And one thing I know for sure. I don't know if you guys have ever heard this saying before. It's impossible to poison your way back to health. Right? You cannot poison your way back to health. You can't put poison in your body and help it heal. Right? So somehow when we're stricken with fear, all that goes out the window. But let's talk about a concept here which, again, is based on science, and I've shared this with you before, but it's worth repeating for some of you who are just learning this. The pool on the left and the pool on the right. Which one would you rather swim in?
Right.
The right. What's wrong with the pool on the left? The pH is off, right? It's nasty. It's got fungus, yeast, mold, all kinds of stuff growing in there. That would not be growing in there if it had a balanced pH, right? Okay, so the same type of thing exists inside of your body. You have a pH inside of your body. Now, this was discovered in 1931. Dr. Otto Warburg, he was awarded a Nobel Prize for his cancer discovery. And what he discovered was cancer cannot survive in an alkaline environment. And he actually got a Nobel Prize for this, and they don't use it today. Very few oncologists, unless they live outside the United States, some of them do it. Outside the United States they do, but they won't accept it here. So, at any rate, what he discovered was that the way that cancer grows and progresses, how does it feed itself? Cancer doesn't use oxygen like regular cells. Cancer uses sugar instead. So this is really important, because if you're having a lot of sugar, if you have high insulin, if you're on that spectrum, what are you doing to the cancer? You're what? You're feeding it. Yeah. So this is one huge thing. It's a little thing which would make a huge difference in not just cancer patients, but also preventing cancer. Because in the end, you're either feeding the cancer or you're what? Or you're starving it. Yeah. The cells on the right show you what normal red blood cells look like under live blood cell microscopy. And what you're seeing is cells have normal, you see the glow on the outside of the cells, the cell membranes. They're made up of fat. And they have a negative charge on the outside and a positive charge on the inside. And when they're normal and healthy like that in an alkaline environment, they're separated. And they repel each other. And they carry oxygen freely through the bloodstream. That's what a healthy environment is supposed to look like. Cancer doesn't like that. It can't survive in that environment because it doesn't use oxygen. It can, but it chooses not to. What it chooses to use instead is glycolysis, which is the process of using sugar. Because when you create this imbalanced pH, when you have the standard American diet, processed meats, alcohol, sugar, caffeine, artificial sweeteners, high fructose corn syrup, you guys know, all the bad stuff, right? What it does is it takes your pH from, which is supposed to be normal, slightly alkaline, 7.365, and it starts to move it downward into the 5, 5.5, 4, 4.3. Once you're in that range right there, now cancer can go to town, like Pac-Man. And what it does is it starts promoting itself. Cancer-promoting genes are turned on. You're making more and more cancer cells. And as these cancer cells use sugar, the byproduct it gives off is lactic acid. Lactic acid is what suffocates all the other cells and destroys all the other good cells around it. And it causes them to clump together. And when they clump together, they can't transport the oxygen through the bloodstream. And because of that, it becomes a fertile breeding ground for cancer, because that's exactly what cancer needs to compete in that environment and have the edge over all the other cells. Is that making sense? Yes. Yeah. So if we keep eating like that, we're just supporting and feeding cancer. And even if you're not diagnosed with it yet, if we continue to embrace these types of things on any level, and I'm going to get more into it, you're increasing your risk of cancer. Because remember, it's not a question of if we have cancer. We all have cancer. The question is, do we have an environment inside our bodies that allows it and supports it in killing off the cancer or starving that cancer out of our body? So if you look on that right side, you see all the things that create an alkaline environment. What is alkaline pH? Some of these waters you can buy are alkaline pH, right? You have the water-rich vegetables, low-sugar fruits, lemons, limes, tomatoes, avocados. And so we know these are all the foods by God, all the healthy foods. And the more we can learn about this, and then the more that we can apply this, the more we have a good cancer prevention strategy. Are you guys with me so far? So let's take this and build on it. Type 2 diabetes and cancer are diseases of metabolism. Everybody say metabolism. Metabolism. What does that mean? Well, some of us are working on our metabolism right now. When your metabolism goes slow, you gain weight. When your metabolism speeds up, you usually what? Lose it. Yeah, so everybody wants to try to raise their metabolism. But you destroy your metabolism with a sedentary lifestyle and also with high insulin levels. Because when insulin goes up, what is your body doing to fat? It's not burning it, it's storing it, right? So this is part of what causes cancer when insulin goes up. Here's what happens. Breast, prostate, and colon cancer cells have what? Insulin receptors on them. Yeah, they have insulin receptors. They hijack the sugar, and it feeds those tumors. PET scans show you how much glucose is being consumed by active cancer cells. Anybody ever seen a PET scan before? The area that lights up on the PET scan is the radioactive tracer that they use, which is glucose. So that's showing you where the cancer is actually sucking up the sugar to feed itself. The nutrient sensor insulin is a highly potent growth factor. So anytime you're allowing insulin levels to go up in your body, what are you doing to the cancer? Feeding it. That's interesting, isn't it? High insulin levels increase the risk of cancer. I'll say that again. High insulin levels increase your risk of cancer. That's worth noting, isn't it? If you've got a high fasting glucose, if you are running high A1C, if you have high insulin levels, this is something for you to pay attention to, right? Oh, wait a second. Close up my pantry. First we wanted to close up the medicine chest. Now we're talking about the pantry. Are you reading your labels? Like you see that label over there? What does it say? Water, corn syrup, canola oil, sugar, right? All that stuff. If you're reading the labels, you'll know what you're allowing to create as far as one environment versus the other. And then you have all these other things which sometimes, we have more than we should, right? And then you have your typical hospital food right after you've gotten your cancer treatment. Which is what? Sugar. Yeah. All right. So you guys get the point. You've got to read the label, read the ingredients. We've gone over this food pyramid. And what have we always talked about? Taking that bottom 60%, the bread, the pasta, the potatoes, the cereals, the grains. This is what has been recommended to us as the standard American diet. We're supposed to have 60% of this. How did that happen? Well, we've got some good lobbyists there for our agricultural commerce. And this is what has been the recommendation. Since they made that recommendation in 1997, you know what's happened to the number of cases of diabetes? Almost tripled. Yeah, and that's why we can't get our incidence of cancer down also. Same problem. So what we need to do is, the less of that we have, all of these items that are raising glucose, raising insulin, the more we can correct that metabolism, the more that we can reverse diabetes, the more we can lower our risk of cancer, the more we're lowering our risk of Alzheimer's disease. Every degenerative disease is a disease of metabolism that's completely reversible. Hello? Are we getting this? If we can control our choices. For some of us, it's easier than others. For some of us, it's harder than others. And I get it. But it's worth repeating over and over. The repetition is the mother of all skill. That's why you keep coming back to the workshops, right? Keep coming back to the workshops. It's like drinking out of a fire hose, right? I'm blowing some of you away right now. Errol's like, oh, I can't take anymore. Right? Can't take anymore. So you get what you can, and then you come back and you keep learning. And every time you go to the grocery store, right, Cheryl? You think. Rodney, every time you go out, let's say you go into a Subway, you're going to a restaurant, you think, all right, should I get this or should I get this? And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we take information and we make what? Application. Yeah. So what do you see in that food pyramid there? You see asparagus. The 60% is not the carbs, it's the what? The greens, right? The greens, you got broccoli, cauliflower, the cruciferous veggies, Brussels sprouts. You see the peppers there, the onions, mushrooms, spinach, and then right above there you have your protein choices. Chicken, eggs, grass-fed, right? All grass-fed. Grass-fed meats. Then you have your nuts there, all your good fats, the avocados, the cashews, the almonds, the butter, grass-fed butter. Now the fruits there you see are apples, oranges, the Granny Smith apple up there and the berries, probably the lowest in the sugar. But what I always recommend is what? The berries. Yeah, I mean Granny Smith apple is lower in sugar, but I don't eat too much in the way of oranges. Bananas, I'll treat myself every once in a while, maybe do a half a banana, and maybe I'll do that once a week. I would not be eating a banana a day. I know some people do that. That's not a good strategy to drop here. But the low sugar fruits, easy strategies, the berries. Then you have you see the chocolate up there? That's what's called cacao. So that's not like a Hershey's chocolate bar. This is special chocolate where it's not even really that sweet, it's almost bitter. It's the healthy chocolate, 95% cacao. And there is health benefits there, but they're talking about one little square, like this big. So for some of us who have a sweet tooth, they say that's okay. The bottle of wine I won't talk about, and I'm not endorsing that, but that was just part of the picture that I got. The other thing, how many of you guys, raise your hand if you've heard of the ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet is, a lot of people talk about that. I've had a lot of good success, seen some good outcomes with ketogenic diet. Does anybody know why the ketogenic diet works? When you look at that, what do you not see there?
No carbs.
There's no carbs. Okay, so when you don't have carbs, what is your body using for energy there? How does your body process that and use energy? What does it create energy from? And if it's not getting it from sugar, what's it getting it from? Fat. It's getting it from the fats. Yeah. Now there's fat in the protein sources there also, but your body at a certain point, after you take out all the sugars, it switches to something called ketones, and your body can use that in the absence of sugar. Now, can cancer use ketones for energy? No. So that's why people employ this strategy, just like the pH that I show you, to starve the cancer out of the body. Is that making sense? That's why this is a strategy that I support for somebody who doesn't want chemo or radiation or the standard conventional treatment. They want to do something else. You can't just do this. There's a comprehensive approach to which I send people to special treatment centers, my mother included. She did this initially, and she had great success with this. But unfortunately, her cousin is an oncologist, and it eventually influenced her to do all the conventional things. But nonetheless, this is one part of the strategy of ketogenic diet. Does everybody understand now why? Because cancer cannot use ketones for energy. It can't use that. It needs sugar to continue to survive. So, how about fasting? Can that help us remove the opportunity for cancer to thrive or survive, to help your body kill off cancer cells? Yes. What fasting does is, when we eat constantly, we're opening up all the nutrient centers in our cells, in our tissues. And that just opens the gate for, if there's cancer in there, to just chomp away. But what happens when we fast? We close those nutrient centers down. And it gives the body a chance to shut down, to heal, to maintain the cell, and actually get rid of the old damaged cells. Clean house. It's a process called autophagy. Caloric restriction was first explored in 1909 with mice. And what did they show? It inhibited the growth of tumors in mice when they did caloric restriction. In 1914, they did another food restriction study with mice, and they showed a 50% reduction in cancer risk. So we know this has been around a long time. And if anybody has ever done a fast before, you know how good you feel and how healthy you feel. It's a big difference. Fasting simultaneously reduces most of the cancer growth pathways, as I said, and also increases autophagy. What's autophagy? Taking the cell out of what? Out of growth mode, and puts it into the maintenance or the repair mode. And you can't really do that effectively unless you do some kind of fast. Now, you don't have to fast for days on end, but if you do a time-restricted fast, they found that that's helpful also. It's called intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is not just good for a cancer patient. They've also done studies when people were getting chemotherapy and intermittent fasting while they got the chemotherapy, and they found that the chemotherapy actually worked better. They had better outcomes with that. I mean, ideally you want to do it without or before you get to that point. But again, it can not just help with the cancer, but also obesity, type 2 diabetes, and inflammation. So what does time-restricted eating look like? Simple, it's kind of like what you're doing. You eat breakfast at 11, 12 o'clock. You don't even really eat breakfast. You eat first meal, you're going 11 or 12 o'clock, and your last meal is what, 6 or 7. So that's what it looks like. So you have it looks like an 8-hour window that you actually eat any food during the day, and the rest of the time your body is resting, recovering, healing. Does that make sense? So, I mean, you can do a version of it. You don't have to do a 16-hour fast. You can actually do a 12-hour fast. I like to do that. I try to do that at least every night. Like, normally I'm home, I'm eating dinner. It's by 6:15, 6:30, and I don't eat breakfast. I don't put anything else in my body until 7, 7:30, sometimes 8 o'clock. So what is that? 12, 13 hours? That's better than eating at a late dinner, 8, 9 o'clock, and then again, having breakfast at 5 or 6 o'clock again. The longer you can go overnight, the better it is, the healthier it is for you. And what you will find is the longer you can go, when you start going 14, 16 hours like that, you're going to notice you're going to lose weight. You are going to lose weight. It stabilizes your insulin levels. Your body goes into fat burning. Your body starts healing. Your blood sugar comes down. Your blood pressure comes down. Big things happen. And we watch that. We actually help supervise patients doing that. Obesity significantly raises the risk of cancer. In 2016, the International Agency for Research on Cancer reviewed 1,000 studies, concluded that 13 different cancers are clearly obesity related. Breast and colorectal cancers are the most common. 40% of all cancers come from obesity and body fatness. Which two cancers? Breast and colon, yeah. In 2003, there was a 1 million participant study, and it showed that those with a BMI greater than 30 or over 40 suffered 52 to 62% more overall cancer death. A BMI of 30 or to 40. Do you know what the BMI is? That's your body mass index. All right, so that's your height divided by your waist. The risk of liver cancer increased by 452%. Pancreatic cancer risk increased by 261%. So, people talk about mammogram and going for your prostate exam and doing your preventative screenings. I think BMI is a probably even more important preventative screening. Does everybody know what their BMI is? If you don't, you really should. And if you've never stood on a scale where it actually measures that, we have a special scale back there. You can ask Deborah, she'll get you on it. puts you on the scale, you take your shoes and socks off, it puts a low-level electrical impulse through your body, and the computer has an algorithm, and it spits all this out. First thing it'll show you is your body mass index. If you're under 30, you're in the safe zone. If you're over 30, you have the highest risk of cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. So that's the first place to start. The other thing it figures out is your body fat percentage. And the next thing it'll give you is your visceral fat. The visceral fat is all the fat around your organs. So it's really a good health report to see where you're at. It also gives you your metabolic age. So if you're 60 or 70 years old and your metabolic age comes up as 90, what is that telling you? You got a problem. So that's a nice place. That's a nice report to have to give you an idea of how urgent some of these changes may be. And if you need to pursue that, you can always get a follow-up body mass index and see how these numbers are changing. So, if you need help with that, ask Deborah. She's the one that runs the weight loss program, the fat loss program. It's really a metabolic correction plan. If you want more information on that, it's a very effective plan. But just ask her at the end of tonight. All right. So, it seems like we need a mental break here, don't we? I see some eyes going down, some heads bobbing. We're going to wake everybody up here. All right, you ready? Here we go. So we have a couple of folks that we want to recognize, and it's not you. Sit down, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. All right, so the first one is for perfect adjustment and attendance. So this is for some of you guys who have never ever missed an appointment. You make our lives easier. Samara and Deborah, they really appreciate that. I appreciate it because we always see the best results when you always keep your appointments. Your body loves rhythm, it loves consistency, and I just love seeing everybody get great results. So we just want to recognize a few of you guys that have put your best foot forward, really showing a great commitment, and we just love and appreciate you for that. So when we call your name, stand up, and we're going to give you a medal of honor. The first one is Helen Navarez. Everybody give her a round of applause. Next one is Sybil Green. Everybody give Sybil a round of applause. Tamara's coming around for you. And then we got one for Susan Hatton. Yes. Good job, everybody. Good job. Awesome. We are proud of you. We are proud of you. Just the beginning. And then we have one more. And this is a special one. This is our Elevation Health University Core 4 degree, and this is for 6 or more workshops. And I want to congratulate Cheryl Caldwell for that. Everybody give her a big round of applause. You are awesome. Cheryl was telling me today how well she's doing. She's been under care now about 9-10 months, something like that, and she couldn't stand literally up for more than 5 minutes without having to sit down. Her back was so bad when she first started, and slowly but surely she's getting better and better and better, and now you're starting to sleep through the night, and the healing doesn't stop. It's just continuing to improve. Yeah, really proud of you. Really proud of you. All right, so here's the part where we have to wake each other up because we still have a little more to cover here. I want everybody to stand up and turn to your neighbor to your right, and then put your hands on their shoulders. Put your hands. Oh, there you go. Okay, you got a mark. All right, I want you to massage your neighbor. Squeeze the shoulders. Not too hard. Don't hurt your neighbor. Love your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. Right? That's the second commandment. All right. And now we're going to do karate chop. Good. Get that stress out. Awesome. Beautiful. Wonderful. All right, turn around and love your other neighbor.
Where's my neighbor?
Squeeze with love. Remember, we're trying to wake you up, keep you awake. No more heavy eyes. All right, karate chop. Good. Good job. Give yourself a round of applause. Is it too warm in here? Do we need the fans on? No? Okay. I guess not. All right. I have a question for you. Do toxins cause cancer? All right. How is that possible? Do prescription drugs have any level of toxicity in them? Well, they just pulled 3 blood pressure medications in the last 3 years. It had something called retinidine in it that they use in rocket fuel. So, yeah, prescription drugs too. And every year we see some other blockbuster drug that gets called back, and we see drugs being recalled all the time, and we take them for all of our lives. Then we have cleaning solutions, soap, toothpaste, deodorant, which has cancer-causing toxins in them, carcinogens. If you're not using organic products like Tom's and deliberately finding products that are toxin-free, and you're allowing this to cross the barrier of your skin. We have thimerosal, which comes in the form of childhood shots, immunizations, flu shots, and then we have amalgam fillings. The problem with the metals is once they go in, they don't come out. Other toxins your body may be able to release and get out through different mechanisms, but heavy metals, they're there for the long haul, and that really affects your brain. There's thimerosal and contact lens solutions back up until the 1990s, lead in our water supply, lead in our cosmetics, over 900 different cosmetics, and then we have lead from a lot of the old paint, lead from the old gasoline. And so if this was in the history of your previous generation, it got passed down through you, through your umbilical cord. Studies show that toxicity gets passed down from mom into the fetus. And so the lead especially gets stored in your skeletal system, and lead gets released when you go through hormonal changes. Pregnancy, puberty, as you get older, menopause, that's when the lead gets released. And that's when we start to experience these toxicity symptoms, things like insomnia, fatigue, memory loss. There's a lot of different signs that come along with that. But the thing that scares me the most is the glyphosate. The glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, and about 70% of the glyphosate used today is on corn and soy. What's it on? Corn and soy. And if you look at any label in your pantry, I dare you to go home and look at 5 different labels and see what corn and soy is. 100%, almost everything. Unless you're buying organic, and you have a guarantee that you don't have any of that stuff in there, then it's going in. And the problem with what the glyphosate does is it opens the blood-brain barrier. And when those pesticides go into your brain, there is a consistency with studies that have shown that the more glyphosate that's being applied to the crops that we're consuming, the higher the risk of dementia. Senile dementia cases have gone up congruently with the application of glyphosate over the last 30 years. So this is a fact, it's well known. So the pesticides, particularly this glyphosate, causes significant DNA and brain damage. They gave a little bit of glyphosate in the water of these rats. Over a period of a few short weeks, these tumors developed.
Wow.
Yeah, so lots of studies have been done on it. Now, you and I are not laboratory animals, so it's the amount of consumption over a longer period of time eventually causes similar problems. And since we're talking about cancer tonight, this is appropriate that we talk about toxins, right? So I want you to look at this here, because this is a cell. And the cell has a membrane. And inside the cell is that little strand in there, which is called what?
DNA.
What's it called?
DNA.
DNA, good. So the DNA is affected by its environment. And the environment is what bathes that DNA. And if it's a good environment, what's it going to do to the cancer? It's going to turn on the cancer-killing genes and turn off the cancer-promoting genes. And so if the cell membrane is healthy, it's allowing all the nutrients to go in, and it's allowing all the toxins to escape out. But if you have lots of toxins, lots of sugar, lots of bad fats, it irritates and inflames the membrane of the cell. And then what happens? then all the good stuff can't get in and the wastes can't get out. Think about it. You have mitochondria in there, you have those powerhouses. All the energy of your cells is created inside that cell. And those cells give off byproducts. Just like when you burn a log, it gives off smoke. And if you don't let the smoke out of the house, you got a problem. And so once the inside of that cell cannot properly detoxify and get rid of those toxins, again, what kind of environment are you creating for the DNA? Got a problem. Now it's turning on the cancer-promoting genes and turning off the cancer-killing genes. You got that? Does that make sense? And it all starts with the membrane, and the toxins will cause and wreak havoc and create this situation. So this is what we're talking about. Now, when you have just one cell, that's not a problem. But when you have a body and it's filled with 70 trillion cells, and all these buckets, so to speak, are filled up with toxins, what eventually happens? It starts spilling over. And when it starts spilling over, then what happens? Then you start having symptoms. What are some of the symptoms? Like I said, irritability, fatigue, sometimes depression, brain fog, memory loss, weight loss resistance, drug-resistant hypertension. These are typical symptoms of toxicity. And of course, you're increasing your risk of cancer. So it's always a good idea, at least on a regular basis, to check your toxicity levels. Because is there anybody in this room, including myself, that's not toxic? We're all toxic. The question is what? How toxic are we? Does your body have a detox mechanism? Yeah. Liver, kidneys, the lymph, the gut. It's always trying to detoxify. Here's the problem. When you got more going in than coming out, you're in overload. And at some point, you have to balance the books, so to speak. You have to reconcile. The place to start, I recommend this for everybody, at least at some point, check your toxicity levels. And the technology that we use is a visual contrast sensitivity test. So toxicity affects the optic nerve. So when we test you with this, you're looking at lines, and at a certain point when you can't discern which way the lines are going, it tells you how toxic you are, and then it really can give some level of indication of what type of toxicity. Could be mold, biotoxins, could be metals, could be any number of things. Then the other test that we do is the meta-oxy. Meta-oxy is cellular inflammation. And basically, it's a urine test. We take a sample and we put it in this solution, and it shows the level of red. And you compare your level of red against the shade that's in there, and it tells you the level of cellular inflammation. And that's really the only true way to measure how toxic you are, because toxins cause inflammation at the cellular level, right? Yeah. So it's a simple, two simple tests. There is a questionnaire, but this gives us an idea of what your toxicity levels are. Now, I'll tell you what, if that test right there costs $1,000, it would be worth it, because there's nothing else out there that can diagnose the level of cellular inflammation as effectively as that. But this is something that we do regularly. We do have a program that actually addresses these issues, but I don't want to talk about that. There's no sense in doing the program unless you know you're a candidate for it. And the only way to know if you need to detox is to see how much toxicity is in there. So if that's something that makes sense to you, and again, this is part of our strategy for reducing our risk of cancer, then talk to Deborah or Tamara on the way out, and they can make you an appointment for that. Normally it's $97 or $397. We do it for $97 for the workshop promotion. So she can make that appointment for you. The Ultraplex Complete Clean is a shake. How many of you guys utilize this? You do. Okay, good. Did you know that it's not just a supplement that you take that has antioxidants and vitamins and minerals? It's got a good source of protein, but you know what also it does? It helps to detox. Now, it does that by using something called N-acetylcysteine, which is something that helps to support phase 2 liver detox. So that's one component. But if you have heavy metal toxicity, mercury, aluminum, lead, anything like that, it can't get to that level. So this is something that I do. There's nothing wrong with doing it. In fact, I would recommend it. This is an easy, simple breakfast. It takes 2 scoops, put it in water, or almond milk, or coconut milk, and you have your plate of berries with maybe a little almond butter, and that's my breakfast. And that is what we call the breakfast of champions. So if you haven't tried it, I would recommend trying it. A lot of our patients do it, and you can use it as a meal replacement. Super healthy, easy, saves you time, saves you money. And another supplement you have with your suite, your handout, wanted to mention about curcumin, because there's tremendous amount of literature supporting it as a cancer support product. And it does this by reducing inflammation. It does it by destroying cancer stem cells. So it's the active form of turmeric, but it's actually in concentrated therapeutic dosages. So how many of you guys cook with turmeric? Anybody here? Okay. So you could put it on and get a little flavor, but that's not going to ever give you a therapeutic dosage. So when you take these capsules, they're highly anti-inflammatory, natural, and they've got significant cancer preventative properties. How many of you take a vitamin D supplement? Every hand should be up. The question is, do you know what your vitamin D level is? Studies show one of the best ways to prevent most major cancers is to maintain an optimal level, which is what? 70. If you go into your primary physician and they test your vitamin D and they tell you it's normal, but it's only 30 or 35, you're not there. You're not anywhere near there as far as what we're applying to be proactive and preventative with cancer. So you got to take more. Oftentimes people need K2 with their vitamin D. A lot of times we find 5,000 international units is not enough. You're taking your one a day and maybe it's got 2,000 international units. And your doctor tells you that's enough. Yeah, for you to be normal, but not optimal. And so another study, National Health and Nutritional Examination Survey, 13,000 adults, they found low vitamin D levels were associated with a stunning 26% increase in what? Total mortality, primarily from heart disease and cancer. So easy fix. You just really need to make sure that you get enough. Most people don't get enough. And 5,000 international units may not get you there. The only way to know is to test. Now, either you do it at your doctor and bring me the report, or we can do a finger prick blood test for you right here, and we can get it for you. Either way, make sure you know what your number is, right? Ultraplex Onco, here's another supplement, which is antioxidant. It's cancer preventative, it's anti-inflammatory, and it significantly boosts detox in your body. So this is something that I've included in here because for a cancer preventative strategy, it needs to be mentioned. And then CoQ10. This is to help support overall health, cell health, cardiovascular system, your nervous system. And so, as we always do at the workshops, 15% discount tonight only. I would encourage you to take advantage of that. If there's anything that you need that you think is appropriate for you or loved ones, get it tonight because the supplies are limited. Okay. So, last thing that we're going to talk about, just another 5 minutes. How does stress cause cancer? How do you think stress causes cancer? How does that work? Yeah, it weakens your body, that's right. How does it weaken your body? When you're under constant stress, how does your body deal with that? Well, there's adrenaline, this fight or flight, which is stimulated constantly by which system? Your nervous system. You have your autonomic nervous system. There are how many parts to your autonomic nervous system? 2 parts. I just helped you cheat there. All right. So there's 2 parts. One part is the sympathetic. That's the fight or flight. When you're under a lot of stress all the time, your adrenal glands are firing all the time. You're fatigued. You're stressed out. Your immune system works overtime. It finally conks out. That's when you get sick more often. What happens to your risk of cancer? Goes up. Your risk of sudden cardiac death, heart disease, goes up. So most people are walking around because they're stressed out in autonomic balance. Because that sympathetic part, that fight or flight, is in overdrive, dominant. Now you have the other part that wants to do its job. It's called the parasympathetic. It's called rest and recover, but we just kind of keep our heel on that, right? We just stay up and watch the football game till midnight when we should be getting in bed, and we wake up and we're short on sleep, and that just keeps rolling into the next day and the next day. We never give our body a chance to recover, right? But I need to share this with you because this is important. So what I just talked about was the autonomic nervous system. You got the yellow nerves, which is the sympathetic, the green nerves, which are the parasympathetic, and you got to keep that seesaw in balance. Now the question is, if we're constantly driving sympathetic, how do we stimulate the parasympathetic to bring that autonomic nervous system back into balance and help your body adapt to stress? What stimulates autonomic balance? Adequate sleep, deep breathing, yoga, exercise, meditation, prayer, and what? Chiropractic care. How do the adjustments help with that? Well, you got this one bone right up here called the what? Atlas. Very good, Atlas. And right in front of the atlas, you have something called the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve. Yeah, you've seen that in the news. Sometimes they cut the vagus nerve and they mess with it because they know how important it is. The vagus nerve is right in front of the atlas, and then it goes out and it touches every single organ in the body by way of the parasympathetic. And what does that do? It slows your resting heart rate. It helps your body rest. It helps your body digest. It helps your body recover. And it takes a person who's out of balance with their autonomic nervous system and does what? Balances it out. Now, what happens when you get a chiropractic adjustment on the atlas? Stimulates that parasympathetic, and it brings it back into balance. And what does that do to a person's ability, physically, to their body's ability to handle stress? It increases that resilience. And this is a study that was done in 1990, and I did this on my own. I went to an AIDS shelter, and I had people sit in a chair, and all I did was adjust their atlas. And I got their blood work back and every 4 weeks, and I looked. And what do you think I saw with their white blood cell count? Went up. That's exactly what the study showed. I took them a copy of the study. I said, I'd like to do this locally and donate my time. Research on HIV-positive patients revealed that those who received chiropractic care showed a 48% increase in white blood cell count. Why? Because when you stimulate the parasympathetic and you allow the body to come into balance, the nervous system in balance, the nervous system also controls what other system that fights cancer? Your immune system. Yes. Just by adjusting the what? Atlas. So here's a question for you. The next time you get a cough, a sniffle, a sneeze, a flu, get a what? Get an adjustment? Get an adjustment? Why in the world would I do that? I could just pop a vitamin C. I could just do, yeah, you get an adjustment. That's all I've ever done with my family. Some of you guys have been doing that for the last 10, 20 years, yeah. But some of you are newer, you didn't know that. And that's what people do. You can put a mask on and come in, but at the same time, your healing doesn't come from the outside in the form of a pill, an antibiotic, or a supplement. The healing comes from where? Inside out. How do you help your body heal from the inside out? You remove whatever interference, barriers you can from it, and let it do what it needs to do. And that's what that Atlas adjustment does. Does that make sense? So if your Atlas is out of alignment, what does that do to your immune system? It weakens it. What does it do to your risk of cancer? Yeah.
Mr. Lawson, it's so great to have you here in the office. And I remember reading your testimonial on the radio a couple days ago. I told you it's just an amazing testimony. Just wanted you to tell the viewers exactly of your experience. I mean, you are a cancer survivor, multiple myeloma to be exact. And you came here because you didn't want the chemotherapy, which they told you was preventative. You've already had surgery. And you have shared some remarkable results after being under care now for about 8 weeks or so. And what have you noticed in terms of the blood tests or the medical testing that has done before care and now after?
Okay, one of the main elements of the blood test is something that the doctors call IgG. I don't know whatever it means, but when I came here, it was like about 4,000 and something, 4,000 plus. At that stage, I was scheduled to start chemo for the third time in about 2 weeks. But after about 2 weeks of chiropractic care, and I went and did my blood work, that 4,000 was reduced to 3,400. And I said, wow. So when the doctor called me, I said, Doc, I'm not ready yet. And so I continued the chiropractic care, and I've done another blood work since, and it dropped to 3,000. I'm doing another one in another 2 weeks, and how my body feels, I know it has gone down further. And so this has prevented me from not going back on the chemo. And it's just so exciting for me.
That's great, because what you've learned is that God put an amazing healing power inside you, and power that made the body heals the body. We just got to find and remove the interference, and you're putting that application into play.
Exactly. I'm convinced that the process of subluxation had caused this sickness on me.
Yeah.
And so it's now being corrected.
That's right.
And I just have to give the body time and help it along.
Exactly.
With nutrition and more natural foods and exercise to have it corrected. And I'm convinced by God's grace it will be reversed.
The best is yet to come. Thank you. God bless you, Brother Lawson.
Great.
Okay.
So I just wanted to share that, and of course, some of you guys don't know that there have been studies done in cancer research centers, and what they looked at people who were under chiropractic care and people who weren't under chiropractic care, all through that study. And at the end of the study, they found that people who were under chiropractic care 5 years or longer had immune systems on average 300% stronger. So that's why I say the best is yet to come. The longer you're under care, the better the benefits. So he was talking about subluxation. What is subluxation? Interference to the nerves. If you have interference to the nerves that are affecting your autonomic nervous system, you're increasing risk of cancer. If you have interference to the nerves going to the spleen, you see what it says, lowered resistance. Those are the areas. And again, there's medical research that points to that. So every time you come in, when I look at your spine, when I make an adjustment, what am I doing to that over there? What am I doing to that bone that's putting pressure on that nerve? I'm correcting it. Now, can you feel that pinched nerve? Right, Bruce, you're what's that?
Only 6%.
Very good. Look at that. It's been a while, yeah. So that was a good guess. You're right, one step in front of me. The weight of a dime on a spinal nerve will reduce the nerve transmission by as much as 60%. The weight of a what? A dime. So when Bruce was on his back, and I was checking his atlas an hour ago, I said, "So how's this atlas going to be?" He's like, "I think I'm doing pretty good. It's going to be good today." Like we have this dialogue every week. Every time he comes in, "Yeah, I'm doing good today. I'm going to be perfect." Last time he checked, it was like 0.3 of a degree off. Today it was more than a degree. I'm like, "Not good." He's like, "Really? I feel good." I'm like, "Well, it's always better to fix it while you're feeling good instead of waiting for you to feel bad, right?" That's why you come in for regular checkups. For how long? For the rest of your life, or as long as you want to stay healthy. Yeah, that's always your choice. But it's like, again, you have a dentist, you have a cardiologist, you have this doctor, that doctor. Why wouldn't anybody want a chiropractor to maintain a healthy nervous system as part of their healthcare team? That's the most important part of everything that you do, of course. So it's not a secret anymore. Multi-million-dollar athletes use it in every professional sport team. Why shouldn't you and I? So, last thing, I'm going to finish on this. I found this 2 weeks ago, and I shared it in the EOS class. You may remember this, Rodney. This is, for everybody else, this is new. Scientists find the true cause of muscle weakness in older people. What's the number one cause of death in the elderly? Falls. Okay? So watch this. Journal of the American Medical Association, they publish this. Study emphasized the paramount role of the what? Nervous system in muscle functionality, as nerves activate muscle fibers sending signals from the brain to the spinal cord. Therefore, any impairment in the nervous system, subluxation, nerve interference, leads to overall weakness and decreased physical capabilities. This study shed light on the significance of the nervous system in age-related muscle weakness, opening new avenues for interventions that can enhance the lives of elderly by addressing the real what? Root. Subluxation, nerve interference being the root of poor aging. The brain and the nerve system function, not just the muscles. It underscores the need for approach to develop safe and effective treatments that help older adults maintain their mobility and enjoy a better quality of life. What was the first question I asked you? Where will you be in 10 years? What will your life look like in 10 years? You can be rolling out your bike or you're going to be rolling out your wheelchair. I can promise you this. You go week after week and maintain your adjustments. 10 years from now, you're going to be 10 times healthier than everybody else around you. And those aren't words just shooting from the hip. That's after 30 years of doing this and 40,000 patients. And some of you have been here long enough to see that, and I'm thankful to have had the opportunity to help you. And I'm just grateful for that opportunity because that's an encouragement for me. That's why I still show up and do this. Most of the people that I went to school with, they've already quit practice and retired. You know, they've worked for insurance companies. I work for God. You know, I work for God. I serve God by serving you guys. So you get the truth. And who deserves to know the truth? Everybody, right? So you getting well and staying well and being a light, you want to share that with everybody. Share the truth. Share the story. Bring them to workshops. You know, tell them about what you've learned. Tell them where healing comes from. It doesn't come from the outside in. It comes from where? The inside out. And what does chiropractic do? It removes the interference so that your body can have an enhanced ability to be the best that it can be. And that's what we do, right? Awesome. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. And if you need anything up front, whether it's supplements or the testing, the body composition analysis, the detox testing, whatever it is, see them up front. I love and appreciate you. God bless. Thank you.